So I know I'm a little late to the game here and other people have already made tons of videos on this topic, but hey, better late than never. In case you didn't read the title of the video, today's ramble will be discussing the comments that Mark Zuckerberg recently made about how in 2025 he expects AI to replace mid-level software engineers. I'm going to combine my first-hand experience of using Meta's AI tool and also discuss my thoughts on the prevalence of AI going forward, especially pertaining to SWEs at Meta. This video will draw on my own experience at Meta, but realistically I anticipate that the points discussed here will apply to all of the AI assistants out there inside the big tech companies. Before we get into it, just a reminder that if you are enjoying these rambles and want to see more, then please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with an idea for the next ramble down below. It helps me know you guys like these type of videos and want to see more. Alright, let's start with the first point, which is the current state of the Meta AI assistant. My overall impression of using MetaMate so far in the time that it's been released is that it's actually an overwhelmingly positive experience. Yes, it does hallucinate frequently. Yes, it does give blatantly wrong code at times. And yes, it does just pull code from the internet instead of meta contextualized answers. All of these are known problems, and there's no AI assistant that doesn't suffer from these problems. If one understands at a high level how these models are trained, then it's easy to understand that at the end of the day, these models are not actually thinking for themselves. They're just generating what they think the most applicable next word or sentence is based on the prompt and the data they've been trained on. It's a massive oversimplification, I know, and to you deep learning PhDs out there typing away a comment in full caps about how this is totally wrong, yes, I know, chill. The point is that these AI models are not actually thinking, but generating an answer based on the input they've been trained on. The point here is that when using these tools, it's more a question of can they give a solid or correct answer most of the time? And we can ignore the junk that it spits out and hope that being a little bit more specific with the prompt will give us the answer that we need. And to this, the answer is definitely yes. As mentioned previously, my experience with using MetaMate has been really positive. It has definitely sped up my workflow significantly and made me faster overall. Some examples from this include asking about utility methods or functions for fetching a particular piece of data. This definitely saves me from having to search the code base myself or for having to ask the on-call of that team. Perhaps looking at which SQL function in Presto corresponds to a particular behavior I want to get with one of my queries. It definitely saves me from having to read the documentation, and I love that. Or just generating code for well-known JavaScript class problems. Things like I have two objects with certain keys. Can you write a code which will call reduce and then reduce that down to a particular object with some keys that I need? Ultimately, my interactions with MetaMate can be summed up as the following. It replaces having to Stack Overflow or bother a colleague or teammate for those tiny little problems which you often get caught up on. Whereas before, you need to ping someone on work chat to ask, remind me again, what's the API for fetching X from Y database? Now you can get the answer almost instantly with AI. Or, I forgot how to perform a cross-join unnest in Presto. I've done it 1,000 times, but somehow I always forget. I think that the last statement is really the power of AI. For those little blockers that you seem to always forget, it's a lifesaver, since now you don't need to reach out to someone for help or spend time going through Stack Overflow to find the answer for the 1,000th time. It allows you to quickly unblock yourself on those little annoyances and save more of your brain power on the bigger chunks of work, thus making you faster and more efficient in the long run. I should note that I never use the AI-generated suggestions inside VS Code itself. I find the experience of it constantly trying to suggest the next line or lines way too disruptive, and since that code usually requires a lot of context, the suggestions are typically wrong. I'm sure there's a balance to be struck here that would enable me to move faster, but I personally don't use autocomplete unless I'm writing some sort of ETL pipeline, in which case I actually find the SQL auto generation to be really convenient and quite accurate. While there's a lot of pluses to using MetaMate, I think one can also fall into the trap of relying on it too much. For starters, when every time you run into a question like, oh man, how do I slice in a JavaScript array again? And instead of remembering how to do it, you just copy the code from the AI agent, you actually start to forget how to do the little things. Over time, this can snowball and your brain is just rewired to always reach for the AI instead of using your own brain and memory. And over time, this can only make you a worse developer. The second downside is related to AI code generation. I think especially with more junior developers, they tend to over leverage this code generation and it just robs them of the experience of learning a code base and its particularities. If code is just generated for you, and instead of you needing to type it out yourself, you lose the ability to build the muscle memory and the pattern recognition that comes with working in a particular code base. It can really set you back because instead of thinking how to implement a particular feature for yourself, the AI agent robs you of this thinking process and you never really get the domain knowledge that you should. To summarize, I want to reiterate that the experience of using MetaMate is really nice. It's come a long way since it was first released, and it's definitely a value add to me in my development workflow. Maybe I'll utilize more of its functionalities one day, but for now, I'm definitely happy with the level of balance I've struck when integrating it into my development flow. Now, let's move to the second part of this video where I want to discuss Mark's comments about replacing mid-level engineers with AI in 2025. Frankly, unless there's some new supermodel that's about to drop, I think this is absolute nonsense. Perhaps Zuck has been hanging around too much with Joe Rogan and maybe started hitting the bong backstage because this just seems so far from reality. There's two high-level issues I have with this level of thinking. The first is that AI can only spit out code. It really has no knowledge of design decisions or domain context. Most of the time, even at the E4 level, decisions to make a code change are backed by some justification. Maybe it's a bug, customer request, refactor, etc. The AI has no context on any of this information and therefore cannot generate code which takes a holistic picture into account and generates code accordingly. It's rarely as simple as just change that button's functionality to X. There's always some underlying trade-offs or priorities which need to be considered, and an AI just has no ideas about these. And even if it does, ultimately, when it ships some code and customers start complaining that the experience has been degraded, will the AI know how to refactor it correctly, how to balance customer requests with the underlying architecture and design decisions implicit in the code? The answer is a resounding no. So while AI can generate code similar to what a mid-level engineer could in theory write, no, mid-level engineers aren't going anywhere. This is just to generate buzz and publicity. The second point here is why would we want, as a company or industry, to even get rid of mid-level engineers? Nobody is born a senior or staff level SWE, or even above that for that matter. In order to rise through the ranks, one needs to be in the trenches and honing their coding and software and design skills. By offloading that work to AI, mid-level and junior developers are robbing themselves of learning opportunities and will ultimately hold themselves back learning and career-wise. You can't grow as an engineer if you don't know how to code and how to foresee problems before they happen, how to know the difference between good and bad design decisions. All of these things will come from real-world, hands-on experience. There's really no AI which can replicate this for you. There's no AI which can tell you the best choice to make when presented with a trade-off. It can only regurgitate information it was trained on. And the AI damn sure won't be the one on call answering the phone at 3 a.m. when the system goes down to poorly written code. All of this talk about trying to replace developers is really just stupid. You're never going to fully replace developers. Only a human can sit through an hour-long meeting with a PM with their sanity still intact and trying to piece together all the ridiculous features for this next sprint. Only a human can understand the needs of the customer and make informed decisions about how to proceed with adding or refactoring code. In the end, AI is just a tool. Similar to how you can code without ever using Stack Overflow, you can do the same with AI. You can simply ignore it and never use it and just be fine. But like with Googling and Stack Overflow, it simplifies and makes your life easier. So the best SWEs will be the ones who learn to properly leverage AI to move faster and be more efficient with their work, using it to unblock themselves on small tasks that AI is good at and saving their brain power and critical thinking for the problems AI just can't solve. AI is a tool that's here to stay, and it's important that every developer in the modern era is starting to leverage it in order to supercharge themselves at work. Let AI do the boring bits, let it write that annoying piece of code that you forgot how to do, use it to tell you which built-in function to use in its syntax, but don't think that it will make you a better developer. A bad developer with AI is still going to be a bad developer, just with a robot writing code for them and thinking that it's all going to be fine. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed the ramble, and thanks for watching it until the end. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.